Hey, everybody, and welcome back for another episode of The Overlay, a poker podcast brought to you by CCG Poker, Chicagoland's #1 live charity poker experience. Hey, Brando.
What up?
How's the summer treating you so far? Is it summer yet?
Pretty good. I mean, we hit Memorial Day weekend, so
Yeah.
we're now allowed to wear white shorts.
Oh, yeah. Have you ever heard of the rule of 32?
No.
Okay, so in golf, there's this rule called the rule of 32. You are not allowed to wear a white belt if your pant size is over 32 or you are over the age of 32. It's the rule of 32.
Well, my pant size is way larger than 32, and my age is very slightly above 32.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, I had a
so
buddy of
I'm
mine
out.
tell me that once. He was like, bro, you're breaking the age of the rule of 32. And I was like, what are you talking about? He's like, pant size can't be over 32 and you can't be over 32. I was like, fuck. Well, I'm definitely too old for this. My pant size are cool, but not going to make it on the age. I am a solid 14 years past that time frame.
Sweet, and I'm 14 inches past the 32, so we're perfect.
Brandon. I want to say a big thank you to Liam, who was on the episode last week. It was just me and Liam. I do apologize.
I feel cheated on, but it's okay.
I do apologize for some of the technical difficulties. Liam was kind enough to do the interview or, hang out with us on the podcast, hang out with me on the podcast. And he did it, I shit you not, an hour before he had a final table for the Run Good, like one of the mixed games that he was playing. I think he was playing Toe.
What's toe?
I don't know. I was hoping you would know.
I don't know.
I could be saying it wrong, though. Long story short, listen to the episode. It's great. Liam is a super fun guy. I really enjoyed him in general. But on top of that, he was our most popular tweet of all time on the Overlay, at the Overlay Pod on Twitter or X, whatever we're calling it now. How much longer do I have to say Twitter? Like,
I think it's just X.
X.
Cancel Twitter. Everybody knows X is Twitter.
Yeah, okay. So on X, he's our most popular tweet to date, which is pretty cool. And he did, if any of you haven't already figured this out, he did go on to win that final table and secure his second Run Good ring. Pretty solid there. And he beat Ari, the guy with all of the circuit rings. Ari Angle. Yeah, he beat him. Which is phenomenal. So, I mean, it wasn't like it was just a pushover game here. That was that's some pretty solid play for Toe.
So is Toe just like triple draw, Omaha, and 8 or better or something?
Yeah, Toe. Detailed information about the limit Toe, 6-handed poker at the whatever. Yeah, what is Toe poker? That's not right. Yeah. Triple draw.
That's not right, yeah.
Triple draw, Omaha, and Omaha 8 or better. Ari's a really good Omaha player too, so that's 2/3 of the games he's got him. But I know Liam's a big fan of triple draw, and he did say, "Hey, I definitely drew out on some people, but that's kind of what you have to do in order to win a tournament." So, kudos, pretty awesome.
That is pretty sweet.
Yeah, it's awesome.
So now every final table he has to do an interview with you.
Oh, I like that. That might be a lot of work for me. So.
I saw Liam on his either Snapchat or Facebook Reel or something. He won 2 nightlies.
Yeah.
Yesterday and 2 nights ago.
Dude's crushing right now. He made a joke during the episode. He was like, yeah, basically everybody knows if the field's like 40 players or smaller, he's like, I just dominate. I just win. That's it. He just wins. He's like, but if I play in like huge field events, I got nothing. It's just the short fields. So he's going to have to play like the 50K POC or something, because how many guys do they get in that?
I don't know. I mean, maybe like 130.
God, that's a lot.
I'm just guessing, but seems like about there. All right, if you're looking it up, you're going to fact check me like
I'm not.
Donald Trump style. And
you're good. I'm not looking it up.
Okay, sweet.
All right, we're 5 minutes in.
Really quick, hold on. Did you see Dave Portnoy tweeted about playing the 250K high roller?
No.
At the WSOP?
No.
That would be nice for poker.
Is he going to play?
I mean, that's what he said. He's like, this would be light work for me. I was like, you have no chance. But that's what he said. That's what he tweeted on X.
Shit. That's awesome. I would
Yeah.
love to see that.
For sure. Makes for good TV at least.
Oh, yeah. Dave Portnoy about to donate. Hashtag WSOP. Hashtag Dave Portnoy. Hashtag Barstool. Apparently he's doing it. Oh, yeah.
Nice.
It's all over Poker News?
Yeah. I mean, that's what I'm saying. Like,
I mean, he's a big draw. I mean, people really love him or hate him. I mean, it's perfect. Love him or hate him. Founder Dave Portnoy will bring some added attention to the WSOP. No shit. And he's bringing Barstool Nate and Stool Mitzi to the 250.
now you heard
Possibly.
about the whole Mincy thing,
No.
too? So I guess Mincy was playing in like an 1100. It was either like an
I
or
did hear about that.
1600. It was like an MSPT or some sort of tour, but it was like a main event.
Yeah.
And he ended up like missing the Barstool Olympics
Uh-huh.
because he made day 2.
Uh-huh.
And then there was the whole thing about whether he should get fired or not. And Portnoy called him. He's like, I'm chip leader with 26 left. What do you want me to do? And Dave's like, how about you just don't play poker tournaments when you have a scheduled work
Yeah,
event?
a work event. You're right. Seems kind of smart.
Yeah. And then he ended up like getting like 16th or something like that. He didn't really even make any much money. And
I'm sure it was a little bit of being mildly nervous, too.
For sure.
When your boss calls you and is like, yeah, maybe you should rethought that. Maybe you should get fired for it, you know? Oof.
Yeah.
Would be rough.
I mean, if I ever did that to you, just be like, just cut me off 10%. We're good.
Yeah, 10%, we're good. Don't worry about it. We'll make
But
it
you
work.
can't. That doesn't work on Dave, right?
No.
When you're worth 150 million, the 10%.
Yeah, he might be worth 200K too.
Yeah.
Anyways, crazy. Today's episode, Brando, what are we talking about? Cash game side today.
Yeah, a little bit of 1-2 versus 1-3.
Yeah. Are we going to do like
That's it.
pros and cons, just like what the
pros and
difference
cons.
is? Because so many people call and they ask like 1-2 or 1-3. And like I would say a good half of the people are like, yeah, whatever, it doesn't matter because they're like, it's the same game. Or other people are like, nah, I don't want to play 1-2. I don't want to do 1-3. Or, you know, because really the 3 most popular games played are 1-2, 1-3 no limit, and 2-5 no limit, right? That's what
Correct.
I would say the general population in the poker universe, you're playing one of those 3 games.
I mean, that's considered low stakes poker.
Correct. Which is what
And
most people
low
play.
stakes poker takes up, I don't know, 90% of the cash games played.
Yeah.
Maybe even more.
Probably.
I mean, yeah. I mean, if you look at, sure, you can go to Vegas and find higher stuff, but if you go to, Rivers Bravo, it's going to be 80, 90% those games, and then a few outliers.
Right.
1 or 2 tables going of 5, 10, 10, 20, quarter.
And that's
something
safe.
like that.
That's safe to say at like any poker room you go to that most of the games going to be 1-2, 1-3, 2-5, and then it's like one rando game if they have it, and even then sometimes they don't get off. Do you find it? I'm going to do it from an operator side for a second.
Yeah.
Do you find it weird if a room runs 1-2 and 1-3, or should rooms just pick a lane? 1-2 or 1-3, stick with it. Bing, bang, boom. Don't try to go more.
That's a great question because I was thinking that as well.
Yeah.
I was going to ask you that. What a great way to steal my question.
Yeah, sorry. I mean, I can give
it's
you.
Okay. I would say in general you should pick a lane, but the room that immediately comes to my mind is the Venetian that runs both.
Oh, I was
If you're
trying to think of a room that did both.
Venetian does both. If you're that big and that big of a market, I can see you doing it.
Right.
But anywhere short of like
When they
the biggest 5 poker rooms in Las Vegas,
if not one of the biggest, right? Now,
right,
what
I'm
about
just saying, like, in general, if you're not one of those 5 rooms or you're not the Commerce in LA,
pick a lane?
pick a lane.
The Lodge, maybe in Austin, maybe.
Yeah, or like the Hard Rock Seminole in Florida.
Right.
There's sometimes
But we're
45
naming like
games
the
running
most
there.
popular poker rooms, the busiest poker rooms, the biggest poker rooms that are out there that get 10, 15 games going at one time. They can kind of spread a little bit more. You know, most rooms that are running 4, 5, 6 games, which
Even
is
10, 12 games, it's
Right.
not enough.
No. Well, because the reason I was going to say is why typically most places don't do, they either pick one or the other, 1-2 or 1-3, is the idea of you kind of splitting your player pool if You run one game of 1-2 and one game of 1-3. Because, I mean, how big a difference of the buy-ins can you make it where you're going to drive the smaller players to 1-2 and then, like, the medium players to 1-3? Because the problem with 1-3, I've always seen, and again, thinking of the poker as like an economy, you normally don't have enough to support it because of 2-5, right? Because most players want to jump from 1-2 to 2-5.
That's the key right there. Is like they're offering 1-2, 1-3, and 2-5.
That's a lot.
Or I think it might even be 3-5 at Venetian, but whatever. It's the same thing. It's like you can't. There's not enough players to just have all these games supported. And it's like if you don't want to play 1-2 and you want to play 500 max, then like you're probably just going to pick 2-5 over 1-3.
Right.
And then if you only got $400 and you want to do 400 bombs, you're going to go down to 1-2. So it really is tough to like find a happy medium of players that want to play bigger than 1-2 but don't want to play 2-5.
Right.
And it's like hard to, it's almost like you'd have to make the 1-2 200 max, the 1-3 500 max, and then the 2-5 1K max.
Right. So that's something important to discuss before we do the actual pros and cons of 1-2 versus 1-3 is the buy-ins really do matter because that's what's going to get you to decide. And I know it sounds such a silly, like redundant thing to say, but when you're running multiple games, I always found that when you had 1-3, it's like you're kind of trying to bridge the gap between you're pulling up a little bit on the 1-2 players and you're kind of sweating down the 2-5 players to kind of jam them all into one game. And like any good compromise, nobody's happy, but at least they're getting multiple games of 1-3 off. I feel like that's kind of a thing. Now, if you got a little bit more disparity between the players where you've got some lower buy-ins versus the bigger buy-ins, then I feel like the 1-2 to 2-5 range works much better where you can get 2 games off and kind of keep the higher end guys at 2-5 and the lower end guys at 1-2. But 1-3 kind of bridges the gap in the middle, even though some places can get all 3 off.
Agreed. And that's the thing about, kind of diving into like CCG's history, like compiling everybody to 1-3 for years. Also, as much as it bridges the gap and keeps everybody together, it does box a lot of people out.
Right.
Boxes all the small guys out that want to come play cash with $200 total dollars.
Yeah, $50 buy-ins kind of thing.
$50 buy-ins, or even like multiple $100 buy-ins last a lot longer at 1-2 than 1-3. Or you get a large guy that thinks that like 1-3 is the same as 1-2. And even though it's 400 max at 1-3, like screw that. I don't want to go play 1-3. I want to go play 2-5.
Right.
Even though 5-7 years ago, the 2-5 at the horseshoe was 500 max and the 1-3 at the shoe was 400 max, it's like almost the exact same thing.
Yeah. There's not a big enough difference.
They don't view it that way. So, yeah. So that's the con, right? Because as much as it bridges the gap, it also boxes out the outliers, like the bottom 20% and the top 20% are now out. So you're only left with 60% of a player pool.
Which is never good. Whenever you're excluding players, we don't want to do that.
Right. Especially from an operator side.
Correct.
You want to be all inclusive.
You want to be all inclusive so they all play.
Right.
All right,
and that's why I think 1-3 and 2-5 is the optimal, what to spread in a poker room.
Yeah.
But let's go on to, some pros and cons of 1-2.
Yeah.
How's that sound?
Yeah. Love it.
Okay.
Pro.
So
start with the pro. Solid.
Pros of 1-2 is probably, it's, step number one, it's pretty hard to get absolutely buried in a 200 max game.
Budget wise or bankroll wise?
I mean, it's the ultimate smallest form of live poker. There's no 1-1, there's no 50 cents a dollar.
But still
1-2 at a casino is
all
the
you're
bare
going to
minimum.
get. Yeah, if you want to go less than 1-2, you're going to be playing at a home game because it's not happening. And I won't even go into the realm of home game flaws because you and I talk about that a lot lately. But maybe we should do a whole episode on it. I don't know. We'll just use those FBI fake voice changers. Like we'd be like, we have two special guests from different. That's not Ken and Brandon. It's Ben and Landon. Hey everybody, Ben here. How's it going? I'm not Ken. Anyways, back to 1-2. I 100%. The bankroll side is what 1-2 is really for, and it's a way to do it. Everybody always wants to find a way to level up, get to the next spot, get to the next stage. And I feel like it's almost like relationships. Cash games are like you start dating a guy or girl, and then like 3 months later, they expect the relationship to progress, but like nothing's really changed. You haven't done anything to make it different. So it's like just because enough time has passed doesn't mean you actually got to upgrade the relationship to like more serious, or you're actually saying I love yous, or then moving in together and future from down there. I feel like poker players are very much the same, where they play 1-2 for a year and they're like, I need to up I got to move up a level. Like I got to move up. And like, there's so many other reasons to do that rather than just the time necessary. Yes.
Correct. All making sense.
Perfect. I like when it makes sense.
Me too.
Budget. Pro number 1. Pro number 2.
Pro number 2, I would say.
I can only think of negative shit.
You said you can only think of negative?
I can only think of negative shit right now.
No. There's some more positives.
Yeah.
I mean, another positive is, in general, you're going to have the most newest, fishiest players.
Oh, I was actually thinking that was a con.
I should say inexperienced.
Oh, yeah.
The most inexperienced players, because you're going to have any 21-year-old college kid.
18, charity poker, right? Yeah.
It's kind of like playing the easy level of a video game. Like,
right.
Everybody has to start there until you learn the controls and how the game flows and the ins and outs and stuff like that. So in general, that is a pro that the majority of, anybody who's actually a pro or is considerably way better than you at poker probably isn't playing 1-2.
No.
So you have that going for you.
I was thinking that was a negative, that sometimes it's annoying that you get worse players, but you're right. It's a positive.
It is annoying.
Bad players are positive. You want bad players at your table. It's never, I've said it however many times when I hear bad beats, I'm like, but you want that person to do that. You want them to call your, 3-bet with shit cards, because, how else are you going to win? Like, they got to call with better cards, then you lose.
I can't disagree with that.
No, it was a pretty easy statement. More pros. Budget. Bad players.
I also think a pro is like, since it's such small stakes in terms of like a normal raise is going to be $8, $10, $12, you're going to have a lot of 4, 5, 6-way flops. And yes, of course, that like presents its whole nother set of negatives or difficultiness and how to navigate through everybody when their range is as wide as they are at 1-2. However, that is in general a positive. And I'm not saying there's more action, because I think there's actually less action at 1-2 than 1-3. But what I'm saying is, like, you're going to have more people flicking in 2 red chips because it's only 2 red chips.
It's $8. Right.
It's $8.
It's not much.
It's $6.
Yeah.
Like, you look down at the Queen 4 of Hearts, it's $8.
Yeah, let's see a flop.
If it's $5, $10, and it's $80, or
that's
10, we're not playing. We're just mucking.
That's a big difference.
It really is. And so, like, just you're also going to have just parlaying that with the fact that, like, any Joe Schmo that's on vacation or wants to enjoy himself and drink some beers and have a good time, but isn't necessarily a good poker player. I just want to, I'm going to gamble tonight. I want to play some poker. But they're going to default just go to the 1-2 games.
Right. Which, again, bad players are good for the game. That's what we want. Right. That bad players bring money. If all the players are good, it makes the game a lot harder. You know what you do if you have all good players at the table? Go to a different table.
Leave. Table change.
Go to a different table.
Also, table changing is a nice ability when there's 11 1-2 games running in a casino.
When you play the most popular game, yeah.
Go to a new one. Like, you have that ability. When there's 2 or 3 2-5 games, or at CCG when there's 3 1-3 games going, 5, 8 years ago, it's tough. Like, you're kind of, sure, you can table change to the one other table, but like in the event that, there's 2 bad games, like, you're kind of shit out of luck. Get on the expressway and drive an hour if you want to play somewhere else.
Right.
As opposed to 1-2, it's like you can hop around. You can feel it out. Most likely you're going to be able to get yourself into a good game at some point
because there's more to play.
Because there's more availability.
Yeah, I like it. That's another good pro.
I'm running out of positives now.
That's cool. Negatives. What are the negatives?
So
cons.
I think cons are, as much as you're going to have every beginner new player, you're also going to have all the grinders, just the miserable 50-year-olds that have been playing poker for a living. They're trying to make $18 an hour, and they're $1 tippers no matter what, and they're rude to service, and quite honestly, they hate their lives. These are the type of people that you're going to run into all the time.
Yeah, especially if you're playing in a casino that has games that run all the time. Like you were like the ones you were talking about. The crusty veterans, and I don't mean actual veterans. I mean using that as the crusty old guys. Yeah, they suck a little bit. I can picture like 3 guys right now that are just awful. And you don't want to play with them. And then you know what the nice thing is? Go back to pros. You know what you do when you get one of those guys at your table? Table change.
Yeah.
Because there's 3-1-2 games, 4-1-2 games. And I'm talking about smaller places. I'm not talking about like the Venetian that's got, 10. Rivers, 20. They got a shit house. Just move to another spot. You probably get moved quite quickly.
Yep.
That's kind of a pro and a con, I would say, is the wait list, because the game is so popular and it's the game that everybody goes to play for the most part. It is harder. Sometimes you gotta wait. Sometimes you gotta wait. Sometimes you gotta get on that list and wait, and it could be an hour and a half. And Brandon and I are definitely 2 players that will end up losing most of our poker money playing goofy slots or table games and not even make it to the poker room. So that's a con.
Definitely is the con.
Longer
However,
wait lists.
It's a pro that the next game that's usually going to open is a 1-2 game.
True.
Because there's 39 on the list, and there's only 12 2-5 players on the list, and you're probably going to get games open.
It's a con when you don't have a seat. It's a pro when you get a seat. So that's what I'm going to define it as.
For sure.
It's a con when you start, and then and once you get in the game, you're like, this is great. Keep them fish coming in here. You always have full games. You never have to worry about, playing shorthanded or getting down to like 4 players and trying to decide what to do, which does happen a lot more when you play the bigger games like 2-5, especially PLO. Throw PLO there. I mean, you get one crazy big PLO hand or, 2 hands within the same hour, and you could knock out half the table.
4 guys get soaked. Yeah, 5 guys get soaked.
They just get knocked out, and then it's like game down. That's it.
Yep.
That
and
doesn't
you don't
happen.
have that player pool and the list.
Yeah, that doesn't happen for 1-2, where that's a huge benefit for playing 1-2. Cons, besides the jerky old guys that drive the game down because they're trying to make their $18 an hour and they're playing against the most popular game.
I do think that the morale too, like just like you voluntarily going to try and have fun and play poker, and like you're surrounding yourself with these guys, it's kind of like, it kind of sucks. Like, what am I doing here? Like, nobody's having fun. And I feel like if you get to a 2-5 game or a 5-10 game, or feel like everybody's just rich and having a good time and they're all drinking, and it just seems like the higher you go in the stakes, the more fun it seems to be.
Or maybe the less like, I don't want to say
stress or like
detrimental the losses are, but like,
even though it's 10K losses versus 200 losses,
I have never
10K loss to a guy that has $250,000,
yeah,
as opposed to a $200 loss on the guy that owes $1,000 in bills yesterday.
Correct. Yeah, and like that's kind of what I was gonna say. I have never heard somebody call out another player in Omaha with, obviously you're playing much bigger stakes and a couple $1,000 pot and ripping them out like, how do you play? How do you call there? How do you do that? Blah, like that doesn't happen. That might be part of like the whole like PLO mentality.
Yeah,
but even when I play 2-5, even at 2-5, you get a lot less of that berating of players. Which I never understood why players do that to new players, because it's like, how are we going to keep new players in the game if we're mean to them the whole time that they're coming in, and then we bitch that there's not enough games or not enough, money dries up? Well, yeah, because you guys ran off all the players. Con.
Yeah, it's like the pros they want all of the bad players with none of the annoyance of the bad players. It's
right. Can't have
all of it.
Can't have it.
All right. A few other cons on 1-2. you're going to have a lot of $50, $60, $70, $80, $110 stacks, which doesn't make for the most creative poker.
No.
It's more like a lot of people, like I'm just thinking of like a Mike Geo who's limp shoving ace king and then it folds around. Or it's a lot of all in pre-flop. Think of like a tournament when people are short stack. You don't really get to bluff much. There's no triple barrel bluffs. There's no deeper play. It's kind of just like, you flop top pair, you got $80, the guy bets 25. You're all in.
It's kind of basic poker.
Right. It's basic level 1 poker.
Yeah, it's hard to kind of try some next level play here because the guy just goes, it's only another $35 and I only had 70 to start the game, like the day or the hand. It's going to be very hard to get a person to fold for $35 when it's the last 35 they got in front of them. It's like, fuck it, just put it in there.
Like there's definitely a lot more just like all in on the flops in 1-2 than in any other bigger game.
Yeah.
There's that. I think pretty much short of you like drawing the super wasted drunk guy that's just playing blind at 1-2, you're not really going to get any whales. And like the difference between a fish and a whale is like the fish is going to lose $300 and go home. Like a whale is somebody that's just going to lose $1,700.
Right.
Keep pulling $200 or $300 out of his pocket forever. Like, sure, you're going to get fish, but like if you're not the guy that wins the 1 or 2 hands against the fish, like you don't get that money.
Right.
Whereas a whale is great for the whole table because he's going to be all in 21 times in the next 4 hours.
He's spreading that money out.
And so you don't really, short of, like I said, drawing to the drunk guy, you're really not going to find those guys at 1-2 because they ain't wasted their time at 1-2.
Right.
And then last thing, the rake's pretty high comparative to your stack. I mean, it's just, $5 a hand because that's what live poker has to be.
Yeah,
or,
minimum.
Some casinos is $7 a hand. It's like it's tough to beat when the average pot size is around 50, 60, 70, $80 and they're pulling 7 out of it.
Right. They're truly taking 10%.
It's like the maximum.
Yeah.
But that, I mean, obviously that comes with it, but that's why, the hourly, it's so hard to beat. And, that's why hourlies are good 1-2 hourlies are like, Vinny, who used to deal with us and now deals out in Vegas, he would just make $22 an hour and be like, I'm ecstatic. Like that's a phenomenal hourly at 1-2
return. Yeah.
Because really, I mean, you're, in that hour, he's paying $48 in rake. So really he's beating the game for $70 an hour and paying 50 of that in rake.
Yeah.
But that's crushing the game. All right. So that's 1-2. There's some pros. There's some cons. Mm-hmm. You're for sure going to get the easiest basic poker ever. However, it's going to be a little tougher to beat and might not be as fun as some of the other games.
I like it. 1-3.
So move on up to 1-3. Now you're at 400, 500 max. That extra dollar doesn't seem like that much. I can't tell you how many guys walk into CCG. They're like, you got a 1-3 seat? I'm like, we offer 1-2. And they're like, all right, cool. Let me know where to sit. And I'm like, man, like it's cool. Here's a seat for you.
Right.
But like, they never give me any resistance. Like, oh shit, I want to play 1-3 here. They are like, it's the same. It's kind of different.
Yeah, I mean,
it's different.
100
min.
Correct.
400 or 500 max.
Correct.
So now you're playing 150, 200 big blinds deep for a starting stack as opposed to 100.
Okay.
The minimum stack is now 33 bigs instead of 25. So right there, it's just deeper in general.
All right.
The rake's the same. So now we have bigger pots.
True.
Bigger stacks, same rake.
Yeah.
Now a con is you're not going to have the guy who's got $100 or $80 that just busted out of the early bird and he wants to screw around for an hour before the 4 o'clock tournament. Like those guys don't want to play 1-3 because they're just all in the first hand. Because all it takes is an open to 15 or 18 or 17 or 20 as opposed to 8, 10, 12.
Right.
And now it's 20. Your 3 bets now to 60, which puts $100 stack just all in. as opposed to raise to 8, raise to 25. Oh, I can call 25 with my 100. I can still fold. Now it's 15 to 50, you know? So it's teetering the line of higher low stakes as opposed to truly low stakes poker.
Yeah, you lose some of the real min buy players that are going to buy in for 50 that you can get away with at 1-2, but if you try to min buy at 1-3, I feel like the min buy in 1-2 seems like a better play, or it's not as detrimental. But when you do a min buy at 1-3, unless your plan is to just jam it all in, and that's really what your plan is, which is fine. That's a game plan at least. But
you get no play out of
the stacks are so much bigger at 1-3 because, again, like you said, the buy-in's 400, maybe 500. A lot of guys max buy-in at 1-3 because, again, they're trying to level up to 2-5 or turn it into a 2-5 game. They're trying to, I feel like that's kind of what happens.
Right.
And
drawing the line.
We're not even talking about the players that are up a little bit of money. If I buy him for 100 and a guy's got, 3, he doubled up and once he's got 1,200 in front of him. Well, man, now how am I going to get my $100 in on this guy? Like, I got to win a race is what I have to do. That's it. Like, I'm not doing anything else. Then I have to win a race, which scares away a lot of the players that will come over in the interim to just play for a few hours while they wait for, whatever, their reservation or, the next tournament to start, or, they're just coming over after work, or, the non-grinders. So I feel like it's a more grinder heavy game, like a more, I don't want to say pro or semi-pro, but 1-3 you get like a different caliber, a lot less of like the newbie fish players.
It's like level 2 poker.
It is level 2 poker. Fuck, that's such a better analogy.
Yeah, because now your 3 bets are bluffs, and now you're deeper, and now people are trying to blast people off hands because they can see bet for 110 on the flop and 320 on the turn,
right,
and still have a river bet to blast off, and everything just. It's level 2. Everything's leveled up a little bit, and the aggression's leveled up. And like you said, nobody wants to go win a race because, quite frankly, if I got to win a 50-50, like, I'll just go play blackjack.
Right.
You know what I mean? Or, like, if I'm going to wait, like, I'm thinking casino, not charity poker here, but, like, if I'm going to just have to win a race with my 100, I'd rather just go play 25 a hand blackjack than I got 4 races.
Well, then you got 4 hands, hope for the best, see what happens. And you're really only trying to double that money anyways, so...
For sure,
it is what it is. And if you lose it, I'm also in the essence of time. The time's faster, right? I'm okay if I'm going to lose $100. I'd rather lose $100 in 20 minutes playing blackjack than 2 hours sitting at a poker table listening to people talk about God knows what and do you know what I mean? And then be miserable. Maybe that's the wrong way to look at it, but
no, it's not, because I mean, you can, the same token is like you can run your 100 up to 700 in 20 minutes in blackjack.
Right.
Very hard to do that in poker.
Yeah,
like you got to triple up and then find another double up, and like odds are you're only seeing a hand every 2 minutes. That's 10 hands. Like you're probably going to be folding 8 of those hands anyways. So it's like the 2 hands you do play, you're going to have to triple up, double up,
right,
in order to win 500
while winning those races.
For sure. You're also going to have guys with much bigger bankrolls at 1-3 that are all willing, to top up. Like, I feel like I see a lot more top ups at 1-3 than 1-2. And by a top up, I mean a guy that has 400 in green in his pocket, and every time he calls a raise to 15 and then calls 40 on the flop and then misses turn and river and just lost 75, he's going to put 3 green chips back on his stack. So he's back to 400.
That doesn't happen at 1-2.
It doesn't. And that just intrinsically gets
more money on the table.
More money on the table, because every time fresh stacks are losing, they're just going back, topping back up to being a fresh stack again. Whereas the 1-2 player is more than willing to buy in for 200, lose it down to 110, and try and grind up that 110 back up and go from there, as opposed to just plopping 4 more green chips on a stack and being in for 300.
Yeah.
So people get in deeper. So it's a lot easier to get stuck, but as a positive, it's a lot easier to get unburied in a 1-3 game. Like you could be down 800 and buying in for your third bullet and in for 12. And like, you'll feel like, all right, I can just win a few hands here and get it back. sometimes I feel like if you're in for 600 or 800 at 1-2, you just feel like you're just drawing bad. I can't get even.
You can't get even.
Right. It's like, how am I going
Or
to
it's
like?
difficult to get even.
It's difficult. It's a lot. It's a lot. It's just a lot different and harder to get even. So as much as you can get stuck quicker at 1-3, you can just as easily get unstuck quicker.
That's definitely a pro.
Yep. And then you're gonna, like I said before, you're gonna be playing more creative poker. There's more floating. There's more, people taking into account their gutter and backdoor flush draws, and people. It's a little more theoretical than just. You're not going to see 5 or 6 ways to the flop because now it's $17, and 17 times 4 is 68. So the C bet's going to be 40, which just is now. I look down at Queen 4 of Hearts and I'm like, I'm okay folding it. Whereas 1-2, I'm going to go 5-way for 8, and that's going to be 40 in there. And then the C bet's going to be 15 or 20. Okay, cool. I'll float that with a backdoor flush draw and a pair of 4s.
Right.
But when it's going to be 17 and 50, it's a lot different. It's easier to fold. So that's going to make it more, heads up pots, 3-way pots. You're also going to have a lot more 3-betting going on in 1-3 because of the stack sizes them being deeper. 1-2, sometimes you'll go 4 hours without, the 2 3-bets are when the guys picked up aces and kings.
Right. You got to tell what's going to happen.
Right. Nobody's 3-betting king 10 of clubs from the small blind to play back at somebody. Like, it's just not happening as much. Which then is a little bit more dangerous for the fish, because I feel like the 1-3 guys will isolate the fish and pick on them
faster,
a little bit more faster and more aggressively than a 1-2. 1-2, the fish raises to 12. Everybody's like, all right, I'm going to call, see if I can hit my hand and run them down. The fish is opening $15, $18 every hand at 1-3. Greek John's raising the button to 60.
Right. And we talked about it. It's exactly what we talked about. It's a lot easier to call when it's $8, a lot harder to call when it's an extra 50.
Right. And then someone, just naming names, Scott in the small blind's like, well, I know that the fish is opening 80% here and that Greek John's just trying to isolate from the button. So I'm going to make it 150 and just try and steal everything. Then the fish folds and then John goes, yeah, I was just trying to isolate him. I mugged 7-6 of hearts. Right. And then Scott just wins a $100 pot. None of that ever even happens at 1-2.
Never happening at 1-2.
That's the difference between level 1 and level 2.
That's interesting.
Yeah, it is. And I mean, it really does, depending on the player pool, obviously, but it really does teeter the line of 2-5 way more than 1-2 does.
Yes. Even though it's only $1 difference from 1-2, it's significantly closer. It's like a baby 2-5 game.
Yep.
Without offending any babies that listen.
Yeah. So, I mean, those are kind of the pros and cons of 1-2 and 1-3. How's our time looking? Can we talk about button straddles, or do we have time or no?
I think we should save button straddles and the art of the straddle. We've done a straddle episode before, but let's save that for next time.
Okay, because a lot of people recently at CCG have been asking, can we get the $5 button straddle? And it's always just been, no, we don't do that here. Oh, they do it everywhere else. Well, we don't do it here. And there's kind of a reason why. Which
all right, well, let's talk about the reason why.
We can talk about it next time.
No, talk about it now.
All right, we'll be super quick.
Okay.
I personally don't like button straddles.
Okay.
Because I think that it makes the blinds play tighter.
It does.
And it makes the best position. It makes the guy who's in the best position at the table get to up the stakes.
Right.
Which are two stupid things.
They're
as
just
a game,
too good. Right.
Which is only good for you as a person in the game. 1 out of 9 hands. The other 8 hands is a disadvantage.
It's a disadvantage.
So I think in general, I take the 8 out of 9 times it sucks for me, and that outweighs the 1 out of 9 times it's good for me. I also really like games when the small blind and big blind are coming along and playing way too loose. Because people that are putting in money out of position with bad hands is a great
It's good for the game.
It's good for the game.
Right.
It's good for everything. Short of them two. because they're probably going to lose.
When you force the blinds to make decisions before anybody else at the table has any money in, you're right, their range goes whoop just to zip, and they're really tightening up.
There's no need to defend their blind.
No.
Because they really don't have anything in, because now it's 5 to go.
Well, and think about it. Like, somebody opens for 15, in a 1-3 game, which is fine, and I'm in for 3. I get it. I'm only in for 3. It's not a big deal, but I'm much more likely to try to call because I'm closing the action. I know what's going on. To have to, get in for a raise, even just a small raise to start. It's like making the blinds make decisions that quickly is never good for the game in the long run. It makes for a more fun game at times. It depends on who you've got in the blinds, but most normal people, it's no fun.
And then on top of that, a third con is whoever, in general, the poker community lets the button straddler have precedent. It's like, why are we stealing from the guy who wants to straddle under the gun, which is one of the worst plays in poker, because now you got a guy voluntarily out of position bumping the straddle. It's like the opposite of the button straddle.
Right.
You have a guy out of position bumping up the stakes voluntarily. We're stealing that from him so the guy in the button can straddle.
Right.
Which then makes small blind, big blind, and under the gun just muck.
Right.
As opposed to the third guy making it 5.
It's like you instantly go to shorthanded play when you do that.
Yeah, and you just incentivize people to play tighter.
Right. It makes the action go down. Well, and here's the thing. It's trying to force the game to play bigger when that's not really what players are playing for. I remember, I don't know if I've ever told you this story. I was playing golf, and I'll keep all the other names secret, but I'm playing golf, we're gambling, and we're arguing on the first tee box about how much we're going to play per point. It's kind of like gin, where you earn points, and then however many points you win, that's how many points whatever you're playing for. Yeah. We normally played $1 a point. Big games were $2 a point. Now there's pressing and rolls and raises and stuff you can do inside the game, so it does play higher than that. It's like people are like, oh, you play $1, $2? That's so small. But yeah, well, it's not, right? Like, it's different because you're going to be betting more throughout the actual day. Anyways, we get this guy. I kid you not, his name was Uncle Sal. No relation to Sal. Uncle Sal, everybody just called him Uncle Sal. He was a huge bookie. He doesn't want to play for $2 a point. He wants to play for $5 a point. And he wants to play $10 a point. And I'm like, we can't play that. Like, that's 10x. That's like going from 1-2 to like 10-20. Then 25, like, it's such a huge jump. I'm like, it's just not feasible. Can't happen. Best we'll do is 2. We argue. Finally, we agree on $5 a point, which is way more than I've ever wanted to play for. But that's what Uncle Sal wants to do. He's there. We're going to play. Don't want to miss the game. So you kind of argue your way. It's kind of like poker, right? Like, I don't really want to play 2-5, but if nobody else is going to play, fine, I'll play 2-5 to get the game going. First hole, he's got like a 2-foot putt to tie. Now, we used to always play this rule that if at any point when you were down, you could press the bet. I did not think of this until normally it doesn't happen till like the 15th or 16th hole. It's the last couple holes you like double down, and now all the points are doubled, right?
Uh-huh.
Uncle Sal uses his courtesy game press on the first hole. He's like, what do we got here? He's like, yeah, push it, we win 1 point, meaning my team wins 1 point, his team loses 1 point. If he misses the putt, we win 6 points, for $30. And Uncle Sal's looking at us. He's like, guess I missed. Boop, just rips it, misses it on purpose. Like the no look, just jacks it over to the side. He's like, I got a 7. That means you guys win 6 points. He's like, and I game press, which means now I have to play next 17 holes at $10 a point, which is what he wanted all along. He got me in the long run. That was the first time I realized sometimes a hustler's got to hustle, and you got to be careful of them.
Yeah, it's like the guy that's like, oh, I'll do $100 max bets, no problem.
Uh-huh.
Then they bet first inning, second inning, third inning, fourth inning, fifth inning, game, first 5, live, and they got 2,800 on the game. And it's like, yeah,
$100 bets. That works.
You got $100 bets. Huh?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So you got to be careful, and that's why I'm not a fan of button straddle in No Limit. In the smaller places, I think a straddle should be from the bad position, from under the gun. I think that's the spot you should straddle from in No Limit. That, I think, creates action. That creates a different vibe for the table. You're taking the worst position, making them put in extra money, and that's fine. But you're right.
And then the small and big blind are going to play way looser because
Much looser.
The guy opens to 20
Right.
and 3 people call. God knows the small and the big blind are coming along.
They're just hoping for a big blind, small blind special here. Like,
and then
that's
a
what they want.
straddler's calling with no matter what he has.
Right, just because he's already got money in there. And that's an action junkie spot. If you want to be an action junkie, that's the spot to do it from. Do it from a bad position. You can't ask to be an action junkie and then give them the best position at the table. It makes for a much different game.
And you see it in last thing. You see it in PLO all the time. You got, a guy who plays huge PLO that's playing our 1-2 PLO, which our 1-2 PLO is kind of a facade as well, where, it's 1-2, 100 min. But, it plays way bigger than that.
Sure.
But, you got John, anybody who's just a big time player. Well, they're straddling 20 every button. What happens when they straddle 20? Fold. They win $3.
Right.
If they just straddled to 10, it might have been 2 limps. Now I'm going to get in there I'm going to raise to 40. 3 people call. It's just way different. It's way different. And I just hate that it steals from the guy who's trying to straddle and make the game action-y.
Right.
And it just reverses all of it.
Yep.
That's my 2 cents on the button straddle.
I agree. I am with you on that one. I think all straddles should be done from under the gun. If you want to straddle from there. No button straddles. And there are no button straddles at CCG, which is great. Thank you, as always, for listening and supporting the podcast. We are nearing 40,000 downloads, which is bananas. 102 episodes. Super excited about it. We're trying to get some more stuff on there. So if you got listening to us while you're playing at the WSOP this summer, thank you. Check out Brandon and I. We may or may not be there in the some PLO tournaments in the early July area time frame. But yeah, other than that, thank you for listening. Follow us on Twitter at The Overlay Pod. Brando, send us out of here.
WSOP starts today, guys.
Oh, I didn't even know. Happy WSOP Day, Brandon.
Yeah.
Well, good luck to all the players playing in the WSOP casino event. Who the hell deals when they do a casino employee event?
I don't know.
They're like volunteers. It's like
the players deal.
It's like Josh Ari play, or like does like the pros deal? That would be awesome.
The pros just deal, and the dealers
like
play.
Phil Ivey's dealing at like table 6.
Yep.
I think that's great. All right, cool. We'll see you next time, everybody.
Farewell.